All right, guys, welcome to the GORUCK show. I'm Jason. I've got a very special guest here.
Hi, I'm Emily McCarthy.
So today, this is our first time sharing the GORUCK show. It's going to be awesome. It's either going to be the first of many, or it's going to be, this is it, right?
Right, hun.
We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes, but thanks for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so demand was massive after your last effort.
Really?
Yeah. I got lots of notes from people that you were a significant upgrade from me. I've heard that for a very long time now, which is great. So hopefully they'll lump us together. I'll ride your coattails. This will be great. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the broader theme of travel, how to do it, you know, our take on it. And we're going to use our trip to Colombia as a kind of standard.
That's great. Yeah, we just got back a couple weeks ago, and I've been posting some pictures since Jason finally released them from his archive for me to post. So thanks for that.
I took 9,000 pictures. So it was technically a work trip. We actually had all the forthcoming women's apparel stuff on the whole time, and so that's a fun project we've been working on for a really long time.
Yeah.
The women of GORUCK Nation have been asking for it. So ask and you shall receive. I promised it 2018, and it's definitely going to happen. So Colombia, though, was awesome. First off, it's better to talk about things that you love than things that you hate, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, which is things that we loved about the trip.
Yeah.
And when you sort of look at how and why, and is it a good time to go, and you know, first off, everyone has kind of seen or heard of Narcos. That's cool. Colombia is kind of in people's...
Yeah.
It's in the conversation. The New York Times publishes something that says that Medellin is sort of one of the leading cities to go to right now in the world. And what do you think?
And it's not just because of Narcos, obviously. I mean, sure, cultural and pop cultural shows and whatnot that come on, they if they're doing their job, they're starting a conversation or continuing a conversation. And you know, Colombia has been on our list for a long time. My best friend's from Colombia.
She's also the godmother to our son.
To our son. So. And you know, it's just been a place. We were supposed to go to a wedding there at some point, and it got canceled. But we've been meaning to go. So when Narcos came around, we were like, well, this is a pretty fun show to watch. Even, you know, if there's some liberties taken, it's, you know, some good acting in it. And we were curious, like, what do Colombians think about it? And I asked some, you know, my friend's mother who grew up during that time period, and she said that it made her really sad to watch it, which made me think a couple things, that it was obviously a really tough time for Colombians and for the country to go through, and that it was probably a pretty good rendition to a certain extent. So I'm sure there's conflicting opinions on that, but you know, walk back a little more. Jason, we were trying to figure out where to go for our honeymoon when we retied the knot, and his stepdad decided to give us a trip anywhere in the world if we got married at a certain, you know, before a certain date. So it started a great conversation. If you ever want to, like, you know, have a great time for a year talking about something, give someone a gift like that, you know? So we talked about it. We narrowed it down to South America just for time. And then we said we want to go to a place that we've never been to before. Neither of us. Yeah. So it was between Patagonia and Colombia. And
Patagonia's colder.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get to some of the other reasons why we went to Colombia, but the funny thing is that we ended up picking Colombia and then making it a work trip, so his stepdad got off free. You know, he didn't have to pay for anything, but he got us to do exactly what he wanted us to do. He got us to get married and talk about this for a year and all these fun things, but I have to say, there was a lot riding on this trip, and it met all my expectations and then some. It was
What
really
was riding on this trip?
I'll leave it there. There was a lot riding on it. I don't know if you knew that, but you talk about something for a year, you have pretty high expectations, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of things we wanted, you know, the cultural element. We want there to be a physical something, you know, to do there, and, you know, spiritual too. And so, and to stay in the same time zone so we could maximize the limited time we have away from our lovely children, because we traveled without them. It was great, but I missed them after a little while.
Yeah, so. That was, I mean, I missed them in theory, right? So, but the thing is what I was really adamant about, which we're really compatible like this, is I wanted something that would be hard to sort of anchor the trip. Because if you just say, I'm going to fly from point A to point B, because I did this when I was younger. You fly into city A. I mean, I literally flew into Istanbul and I flew out of Dublin to come back to America. And I just city hopped. And I never really, I mean, I saw a lot of cities. I saw too many European churches. I mean, I love church. But at a certain point, you know, that's not really it just, your eyes start to gloss over. I saw too many museums. It just was too much. And so wanting to really put something in there that would be physically challenging was a nice touch. And so there's a lot of treks, there's a lot of things you can do out there. But I'd heard of the lost city, Ciudad Perdida, which is in Colombia, and it's in the northern part of Colombia. And you know, if you do enough reading, you'll sort of hear that it's kind of like in Peru,
Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu. Totally blanked on that. So it's kind of like that, and yet it's significantly harder because there's you have to get there on foot. Yeah. It's a little less discovered, and it's just, you know,
there's no Sherpas to speak of.
Some parts of the trek you can do, but you still have to get yourself from 14 and a half miles at the trailhead to
you
the
can't
top.
Drive in.
You can't.
And it's indigenous. It's an indigenous reserve, so you can't helicopter. You know, you can't do all these things. I mean,
and so Machu Picchu is a little bit over time. This is what happens. You give enough time and enough people with enough money that want to do something, and entrepreneurs start to figure out a way to manage, you know, shuttle buses and you know, cable cars and all of that stuff. So wanted to do something that would be legitimately and physically difficult. So we started it with that. That's how the planning process went. And then it was sort of figuring out where and what else to do in Colombia. And so Medellin was on our mind. I mean, Narcos sort of brought it to light again. But it also happens to be, you know, eternal spring weather, 75, it's perfect. It's in a basin. There's mountains all around you, hills, mountains, whatever. And it's a really beautiful town. And so, you know, Medellin was the first stop, Ciudad Perdida, and we'll sort of get into some of these and pitfalls and things we did right and stuff like that and things we did wrong. And then we went to the Lost City, and there's a city called Santa Marta in the northern part of Colombia, which is, by the way, I mean, what is it? A couple hours flight from
this
Florida?
Is all very easy.
It's all very close. And then we went to Cartagena because we heard from Romancing the Stone that it's an amazing destination. And so we ended up there and then flew back home and got very excited to see the kids again. But so let's start with the packing and sort of the philosophy on travel. Yeah.
Well, you know, we wanted to go very light, obviously. So I actually handed off a lot of the packing to Jason because I was like, you're going to be shooting the photos. You know what we want to see. He got some, you know, prototypes of the apparel made for me, which is great. So I got to try those out. But I took a 21-liter GR1 with curved straps, and you took a 26-liter. With not curved straps. And
so for the record, I had more stuff than she did.
Just a little bit.
No, I'm saying usually it's the converse.
Oh, I see.
I mean,
okay.
The stigma is.
I thought it was like, how much weight did you carry?
The stigma
I carried.
Is your wife, you know, has 4x what you do. She minimized it even better than I did.
Yeah, you did have the camera stuff, but it was a pretty compact camera too.
It was.
But yeah, I mean, So besides the GORUCK gear, I had, you know, a pair of tennis shoes, the war shoes that I wanted to leave behind and did not like them. This pair of like Metcon kind of
Nikes. Yeah,
they were just crummy. And then a pair of sandals, and then rubber flip-flops. That's key. Anytime you're going to a tropical place, you want to bring like rubber flip-flops, because you never know where you're going to have to walk, and you don't want to take, you know, all the nastiness with you. So the sandals, though, I made sure they had a back on them, because South America, I've lived in South America. I lived in Ecuador for a year as a volunteer at a college with Catholic Relief Services, and I lived in Brazil for about 3 years. And closed-in shoes are a very big thing socially. Like, you don't wear your flip-flops out on the town. And normally you don't even wear shorts out on the town.
In the city, you don't wear shorts.
You don't wear shorts, and you don't wear you know, open-toed shoes unless you're a female, and you can wear sandals, but they need to have backs. They need to not look like flip-flops, because that's kind of a casual thing. And I mean, it's nice to kind of know these social norms enough so you're not looking like the frat boy with the sunburned tank top, showing his sunburned shoulders and wearing flip-flops and just looking pretty clueless.
Yeah.
So.
Sunburn flip-flops and saying bro too much, that's a really good way to get mugged. And
yeah.
all of yours, I mean, and I mean this seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, part of this is it's a little bit funny when you say it, but we want people to be a little smarter when they travel. And so that's just one of those cultural norms are kind of a big deal. If you look stupid, guess what? You look vulnerable.
Yeah. So, you know, aside from that, I brought one kind of comfortable dress that could be a beach cover-up or night out, and that was it. You know, just one pair of pants and several T-shirts and things like that. So it packed really light, and I appreciated that on the hike on our ruck to the Ciudad Perdida, because even though I only had about a little over 15 pounds, you know, you do close to 30 miles in 2 days, it starts to add up.
Yeah. So part of it also is what you're going to wear. So as we were showing up in Colombia, there was this guy in the customs line that we were talking to, and he had, you know, this long sleeve white polo shirt on, big logo right there. And, you know, he had his, cotton khakis and stuff, and he had his leather briefcase, and he was talking about in his Rolex. Rolex.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Duh.
And he started talking about how he'd been mugged in Colombia a couple times in the last however long.
Just typical fat cat business guy. Really nice, you know.
Really nice. Really liked him.
Giving us lots of pointers.
Yeah. But I'm not surprised, frankly, that someone had targeted him. I mean, he looks like a soft target. And so if you look like you have something to steal, if you look sort of slow, if you look not kind of ready, you're never going to look like a Colombian. I mean, I'm 12 feet tall, right? It's just not going to work. I'm not going to blend in like that, but I can sort of be off of people's radars, or someone say, oh, I'm going to go focus on someone else. Because if you're a criminal, you want to focus on someone who's looking way out of place, who just sort of looks not quite with it. And so that's how they think. And as worst case scenario planning, that's sort of what we're good at. I don't want to look like that.
No, I mean, and he was super nice, and he had lived there a long time, run a business there, had a Colombian wife, his children were born there, but said it just was a rough time, and to watch our backs in Medellin, and we took him seriously. But as we were waiting for our bags, we didn't have to wait for bags. What were we waiting? Oh, what were we waiting for?
So we were waiting. So then we arrive in Medellin, and what happened is so what you'll learn really quickly is the internet didn't really work.
What it was.
On the phone, despite being set up and all this stuff. So you got to go into, hey, how are we going to go to point A to point B? There was this sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow called an ATM at the Medellin airport, but you had to ask 15 people, and they all had different answers for where it was. So you're not exactly showing up at LaGuardia or Logan.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of, okay, we got to kind of figure out how to get to our hotel now, and it was really late.
It was late. We got in around 11 at night, and so he was sorting this out, trying to get local currency or get Wi-Fi to call an Uber, and I started talking with these Colombians that had just come back from Bogota area on vacation, and I ended up just asking him, hey, is there like a difference into what kind of cab is safe to take, or do you have Uber here? they were so nice. They were like, "Where are you going?" And I told them the area that we were staying in, and they said, "Well, so-and-so and our family is going just that way." So we had spent, at this point about a half hour together, and they just volunteered to drop us off, and it made a lot of sense. I mean, I felt good about them, and we've had time to vet each other, and you wouldn't have that same time. Yeah, it was a couple, and they had, there were some kids in the family and things like that, so it would have been pretty hard for them to just plan that, as it was. So we had a good sense of who we were getting in the car with. They took us, right to where we were staying. We were planning to meet up with them later in our stay there, but they got stuck in traffic. But it was really cool to see right from the start. It sets the tone for your trip. The Colombians, I've always been told that they're super welcoming, super friendly, really just fun people to be around, and we got that from the beginning of our trip until the end. I mean, it really was like all my Colombian friends out there. It's true. You come from a really wonderful culture, and it was really something. I felt good there. Not once did the hair on the backs of our neck stand up. And we went into some places that a little off the beaten path, and I recommend that to people if they feel comfortable doing that, because you really get a more authentic experience.
So Medellin is really accessible. It's a fixed rate metro ride. I think it's probably $1.50 or something, $2 a ride.
So cheap, yeah.
And it's an elevated metro, so you can actually see the city around you while you're moving, which is a lot of fun. I mean, you feel like you're getting a tour almost, just being in the metro. And so you can basically go anywhere, and we did.
Yeah.
And so there's this sort of famous district with a lot of graffiti now called Comuna 13.
Right.
And you take the metro, and then you take the metro cable, which is like a gondola or whatever, right? And so you're elevated on a suspension line above the city. I mean, here's the good news about Colombia is it hasn't really been discovered yet, and they haven't built out the infrastructure to monetize how cool it is, because it's coming.
It's a perfect time to go.
It will.
There's not a lot of gringo prices.
Yeah, there's no gringo taxes.
Yeah, that's right.
This will happen where they'll say, "Oh wait, this is actually awesome."
Yeah.
And tourists will pay to come to this, so they'll put gringo taxes in place. And right now you're just sort of with the gente. You're with the people. Hey, it's awesome. If you speak a little Spanish, you chat with the guy in the metro next to you, or
they're going to
gals.
work.
Yeah, it was really cool.
They'll tell you where to eat around where you're going.
Comuna 13, it used to be the worst neighborhood in Colombia, and this is the 90s were really bad in Medellin. Over 6,000 murders in 91. Escobar died in 93.
Right.
And it took. So here's what's so cool is that public transportation provided access to people in the comunas or the favelas or the ghetto, if you will, access to work in the city or freedom of movement.
Right.
That's a form of empowerment.
Right.
And when you take tax dollars and you apply it to the empowerment of the people, it lets them move about freely and safely and inexpensively. And we heard that from some of the people who were writing it. And so what it did was it allowed that community to be a part of this greater vision for Medellin again. And that was one of peace and security.
And now there's a job, that they go to, and they're, not just sitting around getting bored wondering, what kind of trouble to get into. And there's, when people have livelihood that they care about and they can make a living for themselves and an honorable living, that keeps crime down, and it's happened. The murder rate has fallen 80% since the 90s.
I never felt
unsafe,
or
no,
I just never really saw any situation where there was any kind of go to certain places in the daytime, save certain places for nighttime. You still got to be smart, but so we went to Comuna 13. We did a kind of a big photo shoot by walking around there, which is cool. Just wait till you see some of the pictures. It's awesome. The amount of graffiti and the color, it's just that's part of their culture. They just do that.
Oh, yeah,
they just
the color,
paint
yeah.
everything. And so there's colors, I mean, I couldn't help but compare it to being in the Middle East, which is just so drab all the time. And it's not very, I mean, even comparing the Middle East to Africa, I mean, Africa, there's lots of colors, especially the women dress in these great, just vibrant colors, and it makes you smile. And so going up here and you see, this was the worst slum in all of Medellin, which was the murder capital of the world in the 90s.
Right.
And it's just vibrant and full of life. And it was really cool to see that place getting better.
Yeah, I agree. And, there are, sort of walking tours going on there. We didn't do that, but we saw the tour going on. And, there's, you can see there's people who come in and teach how, people how to do the break dancing, and then they put on a little performance, and it was really good. They do that a lot. They're really, innovative and creative people. And,
So basically there was a tour that was behind us.
Yeah.
And right when the tour showed up at the top, there was this, I mean, they hustle there. Good for them, right? They hustle.
Yeah.
And so there was 6 or 8, we'll post it at some point, but 6 or 8 of them. And they're sort of breakdancing right in the square at the top of the escalators to get to the top or the base of Comuna 13. And, then they ask for tips. And that's it. And it's really, really good. I mean,
but it's still raw though, because there was like a female social worker that, she was kind of behind the scenes, choreographing this for the residents there, the young boys that were doing that. And it's just really cool. You can see that they're seeing that, wow, people are interested in coming to see us do this. So we gotta, do something. But it's not very touristy, at all. Besides, the cable cars are mostly used by the locals. But, there's like some walking tours along the way, and we caught some glimpses of, people telling you like, oh, at this spot there were 7 people, killed in a raid, during the Escobar days. And the interesting thing is that there's a lot of, there's a lot of tours that come, and you can see things to do. It's like, don't mention his name tours. Tours about Escobar there. And we didn't take any of those tours. We read enough. We actually visited the Casa de la Memoria that was, up on this hill, kind of towards the Comuna, or was it? No, maybe in a different spot. But it was, kind of a dedication to the people who did lose their lives. And it felt really, it was really poignant. And that you saw these school girls and classes going through, and it's really important that they're talking about that part of their lives. Maybe they don't want to focus on glorifying, the person that symbolizes that, Pablo Escobar, and I appreciate that. I understand why people don't want to glorify the people that, were not heroes.
I mean, to a certain extent, it felt like the way that America deals with slavery, and it felt like how the Germans deal with the Holocaust. I mean, it just, history can judge, this one was worse or that one was worse. Right. It really doesn't matter. They're all bad. Yeah. They're all really bad. And so a people have to make peace with that. They have to sort of, you can't just ignore it. And so, there's some, they don't really want to, the conflict is that they realize, and the world knows, that Pablo Escobar will probably be the most famous figure of Medellin, I don't know, for a really long time. And yet Medellin is so incredible. If you just never heard his name ever, you don't need that.
You don't.
You just don't. And so we weren't religiously opposed to taking the Escobar tour.
No.
But it just kind of...
It wasn't necessary. There were so many other things to do. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, and like Botero, the artist that draws all the fat people. that's how I learned him in art history class. But he was from Medellin, and he did something really incredible. Like, we ended up just walking by this museum in downtown Medellin, and I was like, hey, let's just pop in. If it's not good, we can walk out. So we walk in. It was one of the more incredible collections I think I've ever seen. because Botero, besides it being, you know, a lot of his works that he donated to his hometown, he also donated his personal collection of artwork that he had, you know, gathered from his contemporaries and famous artists. I mean, we're talking Lichtensteins and Rothkos and, you know, you name it, like things found in really amazing museums. And it's like, we read enough, but we didn't like know that those things were in there when we walked in, and to think that we could have, you know, missed that. And it's really was a special thing. And we saw all these student groups coming through and thinking, what a great gift that they're able to, you know, see these, and not just in a book or, you know, something. They're actually seeing these real works of art because he gave back. And I just thought that was really great.
Yeah, a man should be so lucky as to find himself in a position where he can do so much for his hometown.
Yeah,
and
really great.
So there was a story at the beginning in the museum where the museum contacted him about potentially purchasing one of his pieces. Yeah. And they asked if they could pay over time in installments, because he's a very famous painter now.
Very expensive paintings.
Very expensive. And the story, and I just got goosebumps thinking about it, is the story is upon finding out that there was this demand for his work, he donated it immediately, just free of charge, and then became more active in that museum and started donating more of his pieces and wanted it to be, you know, it's part of the solution. Yeah. And so he did what he could. And so to go back to Escobar, you know, he painted a couple pictures of Escobar and his death. And, you know, it's kind of taboo. If you find yourself in Colombia, I would definitely, first off, there's two things. I would not talk about Escobar, and I would not buy cocaine. Okay? Because they will try to sell it to you. Yes. And it still exists, and that's part of it. But stay away from that part of it. Yeah. And, you know, there we said it. But the Escobar part, his point was that, you know, he's Colombian. He's from Medellin, right? Yes. And so he wanted to paint something so that it would allow these tour groups and other people that would subsequently follow generations to use art to talk about that. Yeah. And so, you know, in some ways, Narcos is the same way. It's a different form of art. Yeah. But, you know, it's an important part of their past. But if you're expecting that to be, this isn't some sort of Escobar museum when you show up in Medellin. No. We didn't even really, we were just too busy. We had too much other stuff to do in, 4 days in Medellin to... It's a must-see. It was, you know, the ruck that we did being totally separate, you know, this Medellin is I would go back. We were actually talking about when we could take our kids here, sort of thing. I would take the kids there right now. Yeah, it's really safe. It's really great food. Like, also, I mean, we found this great place. We ate there like 3 times. Zorba, right? Zorba. Yeah, it was awesome. And so... Zorba was awesome. It was right next to our hotel. So let's talk about, so we had to leave Medellin. We were there for about a week. We took a quick side trip to Jardín, which is in the coffee region, and visited you know, this little town. It was really cool. It was neat to get away. The drive was beautiful. Yeah. You know, we rented a car for a day. That was cool. Yeah, which is probably the hardest thing that we did. Oof. Renting a car there was difficult. Yeah, yeah. So they're getting there, but it's you have to sign away a lot of things. Yeah, but and Jason wouldn't even let me drive. He was like, no. It's really serious. So. No, I would. Well, driving was fine. It was the insurance. They were so crazy. They were like making us sign our life away. But yeah, and then so we left Medellin after we got back for the Friday night, and then we went to this port city called Santa Marta. And Santa Marta is now known to be like the launch point, the base camp for this Ciudad Perdida trek, which is... Lost City. Yeah, which is gaining in popularity, but still relatively an unknown I think they say they put about 16,000 people a year through the Lost City. That's like not very many in the grand scheme of things. There's only like 4 main tour companies that run tours there, and it's all under the auspices of 4 indigenous groups that are there, and you learn a lot about those indigenous groups on the trek, and you also get to interact and see them like in their daily lives there, which is really awesome. But going to Santa Marta, without intruding though. Yeah, no,
it's an interesting dynamic. We'll talk about it. Just economically for them, and there are benefits, but there's also some, considerations taken by how many people are coming in, and I hope they're able to keep that balance. But we went to Santa Marta, and we had very low expectations for Santa Marta. We were like, okay, well, we'll see what it has. We're just going to spend one quick night there.
I've been to a lot of port towns type deal, and they're not usually all that great. Well, I mean, it just.
But what we liked about it is that it had an energy to it, and had a really cool kind of edginess. It didn't feel unsafe also, but we got a taxi cab right out of the airport. His name was Jose, the driver, and we basically just hired him to be our guide. We had him take us to a coffee plantation. We had him take us to this little backpackers town, which we were glad we weren't staying there. And then we had him take us to the place where Simón Bolivar died. I mean, and Simón Bolivar is a pretty big deal down in South America. I mean, he was the liberator of all those countries.
It's like George Washington, except he did it for lots of countries.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But there's like even a beer? No, I got some orange juice. So we went to his the place where he died, and found out, because I think I had heard something about this back a couple years ago, but when Hugo Chavez was still around,
running Colombia, running
Venezuela, he apparently demanded that Colombians exhume Simón Bolivar's remains and have them returned to Venezuela, because Simón Bolivar was Venezuelan by birth. And it was this like amazing thing. I almost didn't even believe our taxi driver. Yeah. I was like, no way, what are you talking about? And he was like, yes, this happened like not too long ago. So I looked it up, and of course, it's probably something in the news I saw and thought, oh, that crazy Chavez is talking, saying whatever, but he actually did it, and he built this mausoleum in Caracas now for Simón Bolivar, and everyone just kind of shrugs their shoulders and just says, it's just he was crazy, and now it's even gotten worse, unfortunately, for Venezuela. So we
unlike Colombia, Venezuela is not the place to go these days. Everyone warned us against.
They told us to not go.
Whatever you do, because. Well, we're waiting another 20 years.
Yeah, it'll get better.
It'll get better, and then we'll go figure out what's in Colombia.
Yeah, but we talked about Colombia reminds us of Ghana in West Africa. It's just kind of amidst a lot of political instability, they were the ones that got their shit together sooner than others, and became kind of an economic little powerhouse, and were able to offer folks a glimpse into a really interesting cultural, and that's where a lot of the slave starting points were. And you can go walk those steps, and it's really amazing. Mm-hmm. So we felt like a lot of similarity there, because the Colombians, they've gotten their stuff together. It's calmed down a lot, and it's good. It's going well for them.
So the Lost City. So then it's time to go do the Lost City. So the planning of the Lost City, let me tell you, this is an important part. When you go read all of the guides and all this stuff, they're going to say it's a 4 to 5 day trek. So I dug a little bit deeper and found out that it's 14.5 miles one way. Yes, it's through the jungle. It's trails mostly. I mean, there's some river crossings and stuff like that, but it's 14.5 miles, so that's 29 miles round trip. You don't need 5 days to do 29 miles. I mean, you
do if you're those 75-year-olds that were doing it, and good on them.
God bless them. I met a couple people.
They had their walking sticks, and I was like, if I can do that when I'm that age, I'm going to be very happy.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Where we are now, though, I'm not sure we'd still be together if she would have had to put up with me in that jungle for 5 days.
You didn't want to put your feet in the little wading pool and read a book?
Oh, I'm miserable with that stuff. So a lot of that is, what happens is from what we gathered, the tour groups down there sort of made this decision that most people don't want something that's really hard. They said, hey, we're going to pace this out. So every hour you're going to stop, and we're going to give you another bar or a piece of fruit or You know, so your tour guide has to Sherpa that stuff for you whenever you're going, wherever you're going. And then you stop at, you know, base camp 1, and there's a bunch of base camps. And all those places, they're sort of set up with kitchens and food. And oh, by the way that they get the food to those places is the pack mules that you see along your route.
Literally pack mules.
Literally pack
Not
mules
just,
are taking that food, those supplies up to those base camps so that they can cook for you, right? So, you know, then you're supposed to stop every 2 hours and eat another meal. I mean, you could gain weight doing this trek if you do it according to the plan.
Yeah.
But, you know, really, we wanted something that was more challenging and, I don't know, a little, I guess it's unconventional because we heard nobody had done it like this.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of back and forth, and we used Magic Tour down in Colombia, and, you know, they were great. Our tour guide was awesome. But everybody, so here's one of the logistical things. Everybody has to have a private guide or a guide for your group. And the reason why is because there's a lot of financial deals that have been done with the indigenous people and with the farmers who are Colombians to incentivize them to make sure that, you know, the farmers make sure that the trails stay clear and that the trash is taken care of, and, you know, they have to get the food up to all the base camps, and the indigenous people, they wanted access to American first world medical supplies.
Medical services.
Medical services. And so there was that sort of trade-off that was made, and you know, I mean, from what I gathered right now, it's a big win-win-win for everybody who's there. And so you have to do this. It's what, a few $100 per person?
Yeah.
Something along that lines. But
I think for both of us it was a little over 600, so about 300. Yeah. But that's usually less, I think, when you have a bigger group.
Well, the minimum stays the same, but there are other sort of financial considerations. But we sort of said, you know, time is our most valuable asset in life, in this world. And we also would like to push it a little bit more. Physically. You know, wanted to feel it, you know? And so went through there and just hired the guide to come be a private guide, which you have to have, or else, I mean, all else equal, we could have done this just the two of us, but infrastructure-wise, you really can't.
Right.
You show up at the camp, your guide facilitates your meals, and here's where you're sleeping and stuff like that. Right. It's all sort of taken care of in the most GORUCK way possible, literally, right? Yeah. Like, after you trek yourself the 14.5 miles, here's your bed, you know? So that part was great, but just going back and forth with the company, you know, here's your guide, and we started out, and he says, oh, we'll probably just do 2 nights, you know, implications, it's really extreme to do 2 days. He had never done it before. He's done this, you know, every week for 4 years. Yeah, and he's never heard of anybody doing this or anything like that. So we just said, no, we can do this. So the first day was, you know, call it 14 miles, mostly up. But what you realize there is the jungle and the mountains there. It's not just straight up. It's not like climbing a 14er in Colorado where it's just straight up. It's you're moving through real terrain, and so there's an elevation gain, but not that much. You know, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters, something like that. And so you get there, and that's your sort of base camp, and it's Paraíso. Paraíso was the base camp. Yeah,
that was a really cool spot. But I just want to back up. Jose, our guide, another Jose, when I told him, like, listen, we really want to do this accelerated. We want, you know, maybe just spend 1 night out in the jungle because we want to go, you know, out and back in 2 days. He was like, okay, and he didn't really blink. And then he was like, we're just going to get on some motorcycles when we get to the starting point in Mame or Machete Pelado. And I was like, what do you mean motorcycles? And he was like, well, you know, I've heard of people doing this where they want to go faster, so we'll just motorcycle for the first 5 miles in, and then you can go. And I was like, no motorcycles. And I
think the line was, that's cheating.
Yeah. Jason said that's cheating. So I said it a little nicer, but you know, and then he was like, you know, said it in Spanish, but so anyway, he was like, his eyes got big and he was like, "Are you sure?" And we're like, "We're sure." And he goes, "All right, let's do this." And you know, poor Jose, I think he might have jumped on a motorcycle at one point when he was dragging behind, but that I don't have evidence of that. But we got ahead of him at some point, but he caught up. He was great. The funny thing is that, on the way back, he was so proud. He was like, every time he saw someone and they were like, "Is something wrong? Like, what are you doing here so early again?" He would just look at them and go, "2 días."
2 days.
2 days. He was so proud. And then we told him, I was like, "Jose, we made you famous. Like, you are the one guide now that has done this. And, spending one night and doing it in 2 days." So anyway, we got to Paraíso. And I'll tell you what, like that night spent in the jungle, it felt like a Star Wars bar scene. I mean, we were exhausted. It had been a long, it was getting dark.
We left about 10 in the morning. We rolled in about 6:30.
Yeah, and that's with some stops. With
some stops, but then dinner was ready. There was just people lined up.
So
almost like Oktoberfest style, long tables underneath a tent, and everybody's there.
They're excited because the next day they're going to go see La Ciudad Perdida, which is what we've been hiking all this way for, and they've been hiking for several days at this point. Yeah. So the energy was great, and you go to bed kind of early, and there's either hammocks with mosquito nets or little bunk beds with mosquito nets. But this is another benefit of the private tour. We told Jose, our guide, we said, we want to be up at the top. He told us it's 1 kilometer, but it's pretty steep climb in the foot.
It's straight up.
Yeah, straight up, and the footing is pretty rocky. But we told him we wanted to be there before sunrise, so he was like, "All right." And then it became this big thing. He loved to eat, Jose.
Oh man,
he loved to eat. So he was like, "Well,"
he's like Monster, very food motivated.
We called him the snack rat. He just would be like, "Do you guys want snacks?" We're like, "No, no snacks."
The full story is I called you the snack rat.
No, but I wasn't.
And then that turned into we called him the snack rat.
Okay, but I was not a snack rat compared to Jose. So he was all worried about would we get breakfast, and we were like, we don't give a shit about the breakfast. Like, we just want to be up at Ciudad Perdida at sunrise. So he finally was like, "All right, we're gonna have breakfast when we come back down."
Yeah.
But so he woke us up early, and it was so exciting because we got to use our headlamps, and we were like, "Jose, where's your headlamp?" And he's just like, "I don't have one. I just have my iPhone or my phone flashlight." And that's when we decided, we looked at each other, we're like, we're going to give him our headlamp when we're done with this, as a
professional guide, and he needs a professional headlamp. Yeah. So we gave him one.
So we had our black diamond one. It was great. So we made it to the top. He's given us the spiel the whole way.
Along the way, as we're moving, it was really exciting. It's pitch black dark, it's wet, everything's nothing gets dry there. I was crossing the river, and I was like, I'm just going to walk in my shoes. I don't feel like taking my shoes off. And Jason's like, "Don't do that. Nothing ever dries here." And all these ladies from Canada were like, "He's right. Nothing dries here." They had been on the trail for like 4 days at that point. Yeah, so there's a couple river crossings. I mean,
in the dry season, they're like to your knees.
Yeah, usually if this is ranger school, you're never going to take your boots off. But this is one of those, hey, it's a quick river crossing, so everybody you take your boots off because they will literally just never dry, and then that just becomes bigger problem.
We did decide that this is not something to do in rainy season because it was...
Without having done it in rainy season, I can tell you that dry season is better. So this was dry season, and that was the right call.
It was the right call. So go in January, February, maybe March, but they shut it down. They shut this trail down 1 month a year because the indigenous actually like to get all the negative energy that
the gringo
that all the tourists bring. They need and they need to do that. So
no, it's good. It's theirs
to do what they want. So they do a little cleaning house, so to speak. They get together, they have their ceremonies, and they do that.
You see the indigenous all along the trails throughout.
It's really cool.
And anyway, we're ascending in pitch black.
And Jose's given us the you know, all the history, all the stories, and we get up there. It's amazing. Like, we're there for the sunrise. You know, we climb even higher up.
It is sort of a city, though. It's not just one. It's not just the pictures that you see. That
and not even sort of
all
of it has been
around. It's not all been excavated yet, but you know, you've got to move around a little bit and sort of see multiple parts of it.
But I got one mosquito bite my whole time there, and Jason, you maybe got one.
Oh, one or two.
One or two.
Yeah.
And we did a couple things that we recommend. We ended up buying the actual bar of soap repellent that they recommended on the trip. We went to a local drugstore in Santa Marta, got the No Peak-X, and we were like, Jose, how do we even use this? He's like, just get it wet, rub it on your body all over, and don't wash it off. Well, and then we had some spray stuff too that we got in country, and that worked like a charm. And before that, we had been seeing all these, tourists, this French couple. I mean, they had mosquito bites on their mosquito bites. I mean, just thousands of mosquito bites all over their body.
I mean, just looked like lepers.
It looked so bad. And they told me it was a miserable thing, and they didn't see any wild animals on the trail. They were very disappointed. I'm sure the mosquitoes had something to do with that, but another thing that helped is that usually when they got to the top of, ascending to the Ciudad Perdida, they make the whole group sit down to wait for everybody and tell the history.
Be hours based on what I saw.
It could be a long time, and there were so many mosquitoes up there. If you're moving, it's fine, and you're using repellent, it's better.
We live in Florida. I've never seen that many mosquitoes.
They were just hovering above us. Yeah.
Right here above. I mean, it was.
But you can imagine if you're sitting for several hours, sweaty and waiting for people to join your group, that it's just
and the locals,
feeding ground.
Jose told us, he goes, they love gringo blood because they love to eat well. It's like, you guys are eating well. So anyway, the mosquitoes love us, but if you buy this, I mean, we had no problems.
Yeah, but we were covered. Like, we wore the
So that's
GORUCK
the other
hose.
thing. So what to wear? So ideally, I mean, this goes back to, in America, we default to, hey, it's hot out, I'm going to wear a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops and let everything sort of air out all the time. So if you look at really, really hot places, the really hot deserts, everything is covered and with really thin fabric. So for us, it turned into, I had simple pants on, so did you. You're the only person that can ever say that, right?
Yes.
That they climbed Ciudad Perdida.
I know.
Anyway, so we had, full leg coverage, and then I wore a half zip out of the tough tee fabric, which is thin, a lot thinner, and you had sort of something similar, but everything was covered as well. And so that's a couple of benefits is that, I'm highly allergic to poison ivy. There's no poison ivy that I saw down there, and they said there wasn't any. But that's why in the military you wear long garments that cover all of your stuff, is because it's protection from the elements. And so, everything was covered in a very lightweight kind of way.
Right.
And I didn't wear an undershirt. I had a really lightweight half zip on, and I didn't have an undershirt on underneath it. There's no need for layers, but it was just protection from the elements, and it got hot at certain points, and you sweat, and that's fine. Drink water, and by the way, there's water all along the way. You can sort of stock up. But what you sort of choose to wear, you can be hard or you can be smart.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of hard people.
Man, there were some people that so we get to the top, we take all these great pictures. We were there by ourselves, by the way, because we didn't have breakfast. We were there by ourselves, and we got, beautiful view, sunrise. And as we were headed back down, we see the big group, the 60-person group, that's coming, making the ascent, and they're just looking at us like, what? How did you do this? And
because you can see we're sort of coming around a different direction. It's like when the roller coaster is over.
You see,
and the roller coaster shows back up, and you're sitting there waiting for the roller coaster to start. And so, we had I mean, I would say it was a really spiritual time at the top there. I mean, this is a really spiritual thing for the people who live there. Yeah. And to have access to that, and have access to that specifically at before sunrise, and then to climb up the final, you know, what, 10 minutes or 20 minutes to get to the very, very top of it and look out. That was really spiritual, and it was just the two of us. Yeah,
it was really cool. We even got up before the Colombian army got there in their digi camo.
Right, so they're basically, to go back in historical days when all of the sort of plots of grass, or the circular grass things that you'll see from Sierra Perdida, that a family lived there, and they would bury their family in the same spot where they lived.
Underneath their houses.
And they would bury them with some belongings, many of which were gold. And so the reason why the army is there is, well, twofold. Twofold is to prevent the cocaine from being grown, or you know, in that region, but also to prevent people from digging within that site. You know, it's the equivalent of a national historical site for Colombia, to prevent people, any grave diggers, from coming in and digging up for the gold and destroying this awesome place for humanity.
Yeah, and the story is so cool, because it's like the indigenous people, they tell you, because they talk to you when you're there, they said, this was never lost to us. This isn't a lost city to us. You know, this is, we've always known where this is. We've always gone here. However, it wasn't until, what was it, the 70s, that some narcos, you know, pushing deeper into the jungle to try to, you know, stay away from paramilitaries or the Colombian, you know, government forces.
It was the farmers. They discovered the stone wall.
Okay, but they were farming coca, so
the farmers, the
campesinos.
People.
So anyway, they found this, and that's when the excavating and all the gold started getting taken out, and so it, you know, obviously caused some.
It's always complicated like that.
Yeah, but it's now, you know, an archaeological site and very important to Colombia. So anyway, we're headed back down. We're seeing everybody. We get down to Paraíso again. We have amazing arepas, homemade, like arepas, like pounded out that morning. We saw them doing it when we left. It's just like a corn. It's like a corn tortilla almost, but it's, you know, it's specific to Colombia and that region.
Usually, in my humble opinion, it's quite bland. But the way they did it that morning, there was some fruit. And there was some cheese.
They put a cheese on. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really a food guy, but that was
really good.
That was a really good meal.
It was earned too. We had done a lot of climbing. So then you know, we head back in, and I was highly motivated. Not because I don't mind sleeping in the jungle, but I was just like, let's get to the end. Let's get back. And so, you know, we really pushed it to get those miles in.
I mean, we had paid accommodations for 4 more nights or something if we'd wanted to. It's just no thanks.
Yeah, we were ready to like say we were done, and the only person that our guide said that back in the 80s there was some French marathon runner who actually ran a marathon, you know, or a little bit over, obviously, you know, closer to 30 miles in one day. So I thought
urban legend.
Yeah, I'd like to know if that's actually true, but. Yeah, we felt pretty good when we.
I mean, this is the way to do it, though. You cannot really go there by darkness. I mean, you don't want to do that. You need to go to the base camp.
Yeah.
You need to stay there. You need to wake up early. You need to go do the summit at sunrise. And then you need to just hightail it back down. And the people listening to this, these are the sort of movers and shakers of the GORUCK world.
Yeah.
And they'll appreciate the idea for, hey, this should be a little bit hard.
Right.
And it was, but it's totally doable hard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10? Like, we said like 7.5, you know, I mean, 8. It wasn't the hardest thing we've ever done, but it was also like a fun challenge, right? Like it's, you know. And you could make it harder if you put a log.
Don't do that.
Bring a log into the picture, or carry more weight. You can make it a lot harder.
Don't do that. Just enjoy
it. But it was an enjoyable.
Just go faster. The 29 miles.
Yeah, But
It'll do you right.
On the trek, you know, Jason's got all these ideas. He's like, we could do a GORUCK event here.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I mean, I would love to organize a trip that said, hey, who wants to come to this? I mean, you know, it becomes a sort of time and all of that type stuff.
Yeah, but it's a destination.
It would be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we could show you that portion of Colombia, and we could do a really, really good job. It's just, it's a little bit outside our sweet spot for what we do. So anyway, we get back down. There's this sort of, you know, there's
another meal.
There's another meal. There's so many meals. It's too many meals. I didn't even eat the meal at the end. I was just full of I don't like to eat that much either. Yeah. But I did drink a couple aguilas, which aguila means eagle. In Spanish, it's the beer of la cerveza de la gente, the beer of the people, right? That's some of my calle español.
Oh my God.
She loves it when I say calle español.
So terrible.
So Aguila was great at the end, and then you sort of, you know, you get your little car, and we got in a car and went back to Santa Marta, and it was awesome. Santa Marta's great. You'll read some stuff on Santa Marta that it's sort of urban trash port town. I read all that too. Hey, don't stay here. I completely disagree. Santa Marta was awesome. There's sort of an undercurrent.
The nightlife was fun.
People are hustling. It's good.
And it felt like we were like the Colombians and the tourists were there together. You know, that's what it's a cool intersection. It's like not like, oh, this is where all the tourists hang out, and this is where all the real, you know, people, the real locals live.
Then we went to Cartagena.
Oh yeah.
And so Cartagena, you know, it's sort of famous from Romancing the Stone. It was the only place way back when that was sort of, you know, danger-wise acceptable for anyone.
But also it was just like a zone that neither side of the conflict ever wanted to disturb, because that's where their vacation houses were.
Very historical. It's very beautiful.
The walled city.
The walled city, and it's great. Now, from our vantage point, it was a little bit of a... It's beautiful to walk around. There's graffiti everywhere. It's awesome. There's nice restaurants. Cool. You can take boating tours. There's islands. The islands in the Bahamas and other parts of the Caribbean, the water's warmer and they're better, frankly. But Cartagena has something to it, but you don't need really any time there. A day or something, walk around. There's some really cool stuff to see. Just sort of ambiance. But it's become a cruise stop. You know? It's the only part of Colombia that we saw certainly, or that we read about, where it's been overpopulated with tourists and I don't mean that negatively unto itself. I mean all of the infrastructure that goes into that. So there's lots of cruise ships that stop there, and there's a big historic town, and you show up and you take your pictures and you post them to Facebook immediately, right? And you've got lots of people that are selling things, right? So there's lots of guys with, not chiclets, which we call it in America. Chicle. Okay, got it. We call it that. So somewhere else you call them chicles. Here we call them chiclets,
plastic
right?
Toys.
The little gum stuff, and you know they're trying to sell you gum, and it's just sort of you're the rich foreigner that can buy all of their stuff, and that's really not that fun. And so what's more fun, what we found in other parts of Colombia, is where there is this intersection of the locals and
we did find that in Cartagena.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, the neighborhood we said gets his money.
Gets money, yeah. Gets money was great. There's an awesome little square, Trinidad, there's a great little square there, and it sort of is this intersection of locals.
Everyone
and tourists.
hangs out there.
Everyone hangs out there. It's cool, right? I mean, if you live in New York City, it's what the people in Brooklyn say about Manhattan, right? I mean, Manhattan is so, you know, last decade, and Brooklyn's where it's at. It's real and stuff. Well, that's what the locals would say. But so it was cool, and then we came home.
Yeah.
And so a couple bigger thoughts on Colombia-USA relationship, and you know why visit Colombia? Why travel at all?
Why travel at all? I mean, if you can, you can travel anywhere. You can go domestic or abroad. I mean, this was actually a really easy trip for us, like we said. But you know, it's just important to take a step outside of yourself. You know, and sometimes you can do that by reading a book, and sometimes it's you need to do that by, you know, rucking in the jungle of Colombia, or you know, getting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and taking stock on things. And you know, that's what I've learned from travel. I've always enjoyed just seeing how other people live. You know, how do they build their lives? How, you know, what's important to them? What are, you know, what do they wear? Like, and I find it's one of those experiences that no one has the right answer, but you can borrow things from other cultures and incorporate it into your life. You know, I do this a lot. You know, I'll just take an idea and be like, you know, they do it better there, and I want to bring that back. And so I think that's, you know, I try to do the same with people. Like when someone does something better than I do, or has a, you know, a better way of saying something, I like to incorporate that. So that's what I do.
So what are a couple tips from the trip? What did we really just get right? How would you take this blueprint and just replicate it to any trip that someone might take?
I think there's a fine line between doing enough research, but also having enough open-endedness, you know? So I always have this idea, it's like, know what you're getting into for safety reasons, and also for, you know, you might miss out. You know, we almost missed out on that Botera experience, and I never would have known until after the fact, and I would have been like, what? I was there. You don't want that. You know, you want to make sure you keep that. So do enough research, but also don't live by that tour guide. You know, take a chance to say, you know what, everyone's doing it in 4 or 5 days. I want to see if we can do it in 2. And if you can convince, you know, if it's malleable, if you can talk to someone and say, this is what we really want to do. We're willing to pay a little bit extra to have that experience. Can we do that? Okay. So it's finding that line between doing your homework and then leaving enough for an adventure. And then what I'd say also is that you have to take some risk. You know, hitchhiking with that couple from the airport, there's some risk involved in that. Was it a calculated risk? I'd say yes, for the most part. I mean, we didn't
Anytime you get into a stranger's car.
I mean, we were going to get in an Uber. You know, it's a stranger's car on some level. A taxi driver is a stranger as well. So, you know, there's sometimes some risk to take, and hopefully you live to live to learn from your mistakes. You know, it's not that kind of failure. But even the mistakes, there can be really funny things that come out of that. I used to always wish on like spring break or any trips like that something bad would happen, but nothing terribly bad. Because I find that those kind of moments are really bring out the best in people and make for a great story later on. Interestingly enough, one of the guys we were in Iraq at war said exactly the same thing. He says, I just want to go out on this mission, and I don't want anything really bad to happen, but I kind of want something to happen. But I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, everyone wants an adventure. Everyone wants, I mean, not everyone, but I think a lot of us, especially in the GORUCK Nation. Anyone listening to this wants an adventure. They want an adventure. They want something to be a little bit more than expected. What I think we really got right was anchor your trip off of something physical. Something a goal, awesome. A destination, a summit, something and I would say what we kind of there's a letdown that happens after that though. Yeah, you need to get out of town faster. You need to get out of once you do this, you know it's going to be awesome. Then you need to sort of start to prep your evacuation plan, because it just Cartagena didn't really have a fair chance with us. This was the wrong time. Everything was so awesome, and then it just was walking around a city with graffiti, and it couldn't quite. I mean, it was just so awesome. But you see how, like, what if the trek didn't meet our expectations, and what if it was a failure in planning for us? Like, what if we were like, okay, we'll do the motorcycle, or we'll do the 2 nights, and then in the back of our mind the whole time. Do not take the motorcycle. That's the other. But you know, in the back of your mind the whole time you're like, oh, we could have done that better. Unfortunately, like, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be that first time again. So it's not to say it's not like some things have to align, and you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out. You know, and you kind of need to, you know, try an adventure elsewhere. The good news is that there's lots of adventures out there. There's lots of cool things to do, and you don't even have to, like, you know, travel overseas to do that. Other adventures on your bucket list?
And then I think we're...
I've never been to Asia. I'd really like to do like a trek or a ruck in Asia. And we'll get to Patagonia at some point. But yeah, I'd like to do something like Bhutan or something like that. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Patagonia. I sort of got that on my radar.
Maybe when it's not so cold.
Yeah, maybe when it's not so cold, although it's hit or miss down there. Lee, is there anything? What do we got?
We got a couple.
All right, cool. Let's hear it.
Scooting in.
Well, look at this. Isn't this just like a Sunday night get-together?
If your name's McCarthy, come on the show.
Welcome to the McCarthy Show. All McCarthy.
Where's your beer?
Wait, before I forget it, even though you didn't ask the question. So, also been testing out a pair of boots that GORUCK has been developing for years and years and years now. I've now done the Grand Canyon with them, and I've now done the Ciudad Perdida with them. They're coming together very nicely. So coming to you in 2018. It's going to be awesome.
Really cool.
Booyah. First of all, I want to say shout out to Fredericksburg Rucking Club.
Nice.
Rich, what's
up? They provided Bomber with this great koozie, and I am using it today.
Mike showed up this morning. It was great.
Yeah, so
he dropped those off.
There was a lot of talk this week about what's maybe the best trip you've taken, and then the opposite would be what is a trip that just didn't go as planned.
Oh. What do you think?
Not necessarily together.
Yeah. I think this one is up. I mean, I'm not. This is the easy answer, but this was up there for one of the best trips I think that I remember in a long time. Something I did when I was in Ecuador. I had this like fixation on I'm going to live here for a year. I'm going to stay inside this country for a year. I'm just going to focus on it and really get to know it. And that was a great plan. The one thing I regret is that I went to the poor man's version of the Galapagos because I didn't have any money. It was.
It's not really a regret if you couldn't do the other one.
Well, I couldn't. So. Well, I mean.
You probably could have figured it out.
I kind of wanted. I wish I had done that when I was there, but somehow I was working in this like impoverished community, and I felt guilty about spending a lot of money to go out there because it is expensive to go. So I went to this other. It's not actually. It's on the coast. You get to see the blue-footed boobies and everything but the tortoises, and so it wasn't that impressive, but it seemed like okay, but it wasn't the worst. It was just kind of a bummer.
So this was a huge, this trip it shattered my expectations.
Oh.
And I
Stop.
I don't say that very often.
Yeah.
So this was awesome. Another awesome trip was in the Army. I went to Mauritania with a bunch of the guys. And this was, oof. We could have a whole show on that.
I went to Mauritania with you too. It was insane.
She was there as well. This was crazy. So she was a diplomat stationed in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, and flew into Nouakchott and met me with some of our team. And we were working there. We were training up some local troops. Which, by the way, is the same stuff that Special Forces guys are doing in Niger and all over Africa. Yeah. So, you're really working there. And I think it's important work, frankly, because in those kinds of places, diplomats are the Army. If you're in the Army, you are a diplomat. There's a real value provided. That's the language that they speak there. And so to have a presence there, it's valuable. And so if I know that we've, this has hit home. We lost and have lost several Green Berets, several Special Forces guys in Africa this year. This isn't what the show is about today, but it's important work that we're doing there to maintain a presence. Yeah. We had no presence in Afghanistan in 2001, and that was a problem, right? And so it's sort of one of those things where these are the guys that you want there. And so we were there working, maintaining diplomatic relations, if you will, with a lot of the Army, the commandos in Mauritania. But we had a lot of free time as well to do other fun stuff.
I'll just add, the Army's doing great things, the Special Forces guys, but there's a lot of other amazing things being done. Anything from the actual diplomats, the social
NGOs,
workers,
USAID,
the NGO. And even some of the the religious groups, I mean, talking about like going, native and being very authentic. I mean, they live on very little, like, still, like their whole thing is that they want to, translate the Bible into all the languages of the world. So they're just like these ethnologues, going to study these languages that only like hundreds of people speak. And when you live abroad like that, you run into people like this, and it's really interesting to figure out like what are they doing there and how are they living their lives.
So a lot of people want to do a lot of good for the world.
Yeah,
it's cool to see. So
it is.
That was great. Worst trips? I don't know. I mean, the worst trips were the ones that I sort of kind of. I mean, I said Istanbul to Dublin. There were parts of that were great, but it was also so city-based without real goals. So the goals sort of became show up and city hop and get into adventures and find adventures. That puts a lot of pressure on a Friday night and a Monday night and a Wednesday night and stuff like that. And it just always kind of fell short. And so I found that I would rather go. And so I see what the draw is for backpackers to go backpacking and find some summits and find some stuff like that. And I recommend that. Yeah. Go find a summit or something awesome that you can anchor the trip off of.
Yeah, or something service related.
Even better.
What's your favorite luxury item that isn't flip-flops? Like on a trip like this.
Favorite luxury item? I mean, I guess a camera is not a luxury item.
I would say nice camera would be a luxury item. Cell phone, not a luxury item. Nice camera?
Yeah, I didn't really have a lot. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of luxury.
I brought a tiny roll of toilet paper, but I didn't use it.
Wow.
I didn't.
I like the hydro flask. I would say it would be a luxury item.
Yeah?
It goes with me everywhere.
It's really heavy, though. Oh, it could be a weapon, though, if you needed it.
Ice cold water when you really need it.
Right?
Goes a long way.
Ice cold water. I mean, do you know how much ice there is down there?
Probably close to none, which would make the hydro flask more important.
But just keep the ice from America in your hydro flask the whole time. They won't even confiscate it.
It'll almost last.
They won't even confiscate it. There you go.
Were there any things that the people you hitchhike with, like, that made you feel like they were cool as opposed to not cool if people find themselves in similar situations?
Yes, it's the fact that they got off the same plane as we did, the fact that they weren't waiting for us there, that we saw them, talking amongst themselves and then kind of interacting with us and with children, and then they're telling us where they're coming from. So you just pick up on, these are normal people.
If they're targeting you, be very skeptical.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of, so she's also fluent in Spanish, and I speak calle Espanol, so street Spanish, directly translated. Right? Of course, she corrected me every time. And I was like, nope.
Or I'd have to be like, that he does not what he means.
Nope, it's calle Espanol. So if someone's coming up to you, so we saw this a lot. Someone would come up and they've got their gum and their other stuff. They're not really selling gum. They're selling other stuff. They're selling drugs. They're selling stuff like that. And oh, by the way, if you take that, then they know that you're going to be on drugs. And so if they're really smart and organized, then what they're going to do is they're going to then target you further once you're on those drugs, and they're going to sort of see what else they can get out of you. And so if someone else is initiating on you, this was really an accident. I mean, the other option was, because the problem was our cell phone doesn't really work there, or didn't really work there. Now the GPS does, and we had printouts of addresses and stuff like that. So we were prepared to make it happen. It's just, this just sort of worked out.
Yeah, it was safe.
If it doesn't work out, don't force it, because you can always go to the ATM, and there was this unicorn of an ATM at the Medellin airport, and you go there and you get your cash, and always have dollars, always have cash on you. Yeah. Someone have cash on multiple places on your body. So I had $100 in my GORUCK boots that I was testing out inside of my socks throughout all of our city treks, because you never know when you're going to need $100. And oh yeah, what's great is the American dollar works.
Or you can
well.
steal someone else's Uber if you get into
You
a real
had
bind.
That's a different
American dollars. Like you had a Benjamin Franklin. Pow.
No, it was 20s.
Oh, word.
Yeah. So always have some when you show up. Hey, if you might overpay for your first taxi cab ride if you got to pay in dollars, but just know that that's a lot cheaper. It's a lot less expensive than what the alternative could be if it drives itself to the worst extreme. So if you can't get cash out, the U.S. dollar is always a good bet. And so it's just the little things.
Yeah, and it's just being observant too. I mean, when we ended up in Jardín in the coffee region, there was a tiny town, but there was this small little hike, and we just asked some locals, and this is when it helps to know the language and know when somebody's,
Including
giving
local police officer.
Yeah. So we asked the locals, hey, we want to go up there. Like, how do we get there? And they're like, well, you can go the long way, which takes like 2 hours, or you can go straight up, which is like 20 minutes. And we're like, we want to do that one. So,
straight up.
So they said, you go down there, and, it was one of those things that if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that would be a very bad place to get, kind of caught.
Don't do it at 10 o'clock at night.
But we were together, and it was not dark yet. It was getting dark, but, we summited up there, and it was really fun. It was like a little mini hike up there to just... We were excited. We were getting ready for the Ciudad Perdida, but everyone else that was up there was like, how did you get here? And we were told them like, oh, we just went over that secret bridge down there. It was really awesome. And they were like,
about the secret bridge,
yeah,
right?
and they were like, we're going to follow you down. So,
Ragnar
cool.
chimed in. He said this is his favorite show ever. He wants
Thanks,
you guys
Ragnar.
to just travel places and then come on every week and talk about this. So
yeah, I'll tell you what. People out there, you go just buy more GR1s of your own accord. If you don't have to do any work to get those GR1s sold, then
or develop new products.
I'll follow, I'll just follow on that sword. We'll go travel and come back.
Would you guys do the trip with just a GR1 again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that was like one of the best decisions. Like I didn't need anything else. I mean. You could probably do it with the Echo if you wanted to.
Ooh, prove it. Prove it.
I don't know. So if we were really, so we had to wash a couple times in a sink, right, in Medellin, and then we had a tree outside the little balcony. I had to air dry.
Yeah.
The shirts like to air dry, so we air dried them out there. You have to do stuff like that, but what's the alternative? The alternative is you have a roll bag. Come on.
Or a huge backpack bigger than you.
Or even a huge
backpack.
kit bag.
It's just you need to just if you have to buy something else, even when you're there, so be it. But just travel light. So I would definitely I didn't need or want a GR2 even. GR2 is my favorite bag that we build. Didn't need or want a GR2. I was really happy with my GR1.
Well, it wasn't that long of a trip either. It was 10 days. So, GR2 would, if you were there for months on end. In Medellin, we ran into this guy with a GR1. Ian from Australia.
Yeah. He's supposed to be
coming
through here.
But anyway, he's doing one of those things where he, works, remotely while he travels the world. And so he was walking on the street, and I was like, that's a GR1. So it was really cute because, when we started talking to him, he looked at Jason. He goes, "You're the guy who makes them." It was pretty funny. So I didn't have the heart to tell him you don't actually make them.
Yeah. Terrible selling. Terrible. Other than Narcos, what else are you guys watching on Netflix?
Oh gosh, what have
it's
we
been
watched
kind of
lately?
light lately, right?
I haven't watched much TV lately.
There hasn't been a lot going on.
Barely even turn the TV on.
Jason likes Madam Secretary.
I do like Madam Secretary a lot. So what's the movie with Nicolas Cage and,
awesome.
The Family Man? The Family
Man. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I've loved that lady since.
You have a crush on Tia,
right?
too.
Tia is awesome. I love Madam Secretary. So that's been on.
That's great.
It's awesome. And in some of the hypotheticals, it's a lot of,
I asked you the other day, I was like, what do you really, I enjoy the show, but it's not, he likes it a little more than me, but I said, what do you like about it? He was like, I like seeing things played out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I like the, this hypothetical situation with, China or Russia, whatever, and seeing like how they played it out. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I like that too. Because they're not too far-fetched sometimes.
So, because in the real world, what happens is something starts and you don't get the end of the story. You don't get the full story. And so I think that for problem solving, you kind of need to look at what the extremes, the axioms look like. And I mean, that's where your principles get tested the most, is at the axioms. And so what would you do if? Or did you agree with this decision or this decision-making process? And so I enjoy that, and I think they do a really nice job.
They do, yeah.
Where are you guys going next? We asked the people watching, they said Sri Lanka's awesome, Scotland, Bora Bora, Vietnam, New Zealand. What do you think is... You guys kind of touched on this a little bit. So-and-so is going to Vietnam again without me, even though that's been on my list. Guy that mentioned Vietnam right now.
We have Jordan. We have Petra on our list. We have Jerusalem on our list.
Jala's made me want to go to Jordan, but I only want to go with Jala, actually. I think I'll just go with Jala.
Like, you don't want to go with him?
Fun.
No, I don't.
We'll go somewhere cool.
We'll get Larry.
Yeah.
And
okay. Well.
That was a very lukewarm.
I like Larry.
She's still settling into that.
Well, Larry, don't take offense to that lukewarm. I like Larry. Just sort of that's how she felt about me too in that conversation. She just really likes Jala, so that's cool.
You guys dealt with a lot of mosquitoes. Any leeches?
Zero.
No leeches.
No even worry about them?
No, that French girl we met was very upset that she didn't see more wildlife. But we heard some toucans. We saw like some domesticated pigs, lots of mules. It was funny because I was walking.
Lots of cows. You almost got electrocuted.
Oh, I did get electrocuted. I got shocked by. I was like, oh, it's Colombia. Like they're not gonna have electric. I was like, oh my gosh, I just got electrocuted.
I did. I got a good one.
Yeah. So. Anyway, I was like walking up the trail in Ciudad Perdida, and it's that first like 10 minutes, and I was like, watch out, there's some donkey shit, and then I realized the whole rest of the way, like, it was all donkey shit. So I just had to I just had to step in it and not warn you about it.
Yeah, it just is what it is.
You can't avoid it.
All right, one last question.
Yep.
Is this the official announcement of GORUCK Ascent Colombia?
Ooh.
Well, it can't be an ascent really because it's the elevation.
Not a 14er, but there could be a we can call it somewhere else.
Wow. I was expecting a hard no on that. Like, no, that's not.
No.
No, it can't be an ascent because it's not.
No.
But it could be
something.
It could be GORUCK Lost City.
GORUCK Lost City could happen at some point.
Yeah.
If the people
want
swell
it.
their demand, we can show you how to do Colombia right. That's for sure. You probably get one of us, not both of us, which means you probably get her because she's better.
No.
Plus the kids.
I did ruck faster than you, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. She was more suited to the pace that we were going, without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's a gentleman's way of
saying it. The only thing I'll say is that I kept thinking it was going to be more downhill on the way back. That was not the case.
The way back from Ciudad, so that's what I was saying about the way up. It's not just straight up. It's not like climbing a 14er. It was up, it was down, it's river crossings, it's all sorts of things. And then on the way back, there's plenty of uphills, and they suck.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I kept being like, I didn't remember this. Like, did we take a different turn? And you were like, no.
Nope, it's an out and back.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Let us know if you enjoyed this episode of the GORUCK Show.
Yeah.
I think maybe people will. I thought it was pretty cool.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in.